I think the vice president has a lot of things in her hands that if this will come out in public, I think the other side will be at the disadvantage.
I would be remiss if I don't ask you about this, about
Mm,
an update in the political
yeah.
situation in the Philippines, which from afar, from my perspective, doesn't look too harmonious at the moment. Um, our viewers always like to listen to you talk about your perspective and the situation in the country. Um, what are the updates? What is going on in the Philippines these days, politically speaking?
Well, the political situation is still very volatile at the moment. In terms of if you really look at the political situation of the Philippines at the moment, of course, the still the ongoing has some kind of feud between the two largest and very popular political factions, the Duterte side and the Marcoses, are still ongoing. However, after the election of May 2025, the midterm election, you can see that the Dutertes have to a certain extent asserted themselves once again, because if you look at it, the former president who ran for mayor in Davao City won 8 times higher as against the opponent, 8 times higher, and he is even detained in the Hague. He did not campaign,
How is that going to work?
yeah, he did not work for anything. He's just there being detained in the ICC detention center, but he won 8 times higher than the opponent. And on the other hand, if you look at the so-called Duterte supported senators or candidates during the election, I think many of them won. And in the Senate, at least five, I think, of those running for senators that was endorsed by Sara Duterte, the vice president, won. So in a way, you can see that there is a tilt in the balance of power in the Philippines, especially when you talk about popularity and public opinion. I think the Dutertes are re-emerging, thriving as a rival to Marcos Jr. under Romualdez political faction. So that is going on, and we will see in a matter of time, because the midterm election is very important when you look a little far until for the 2028 national or presidential election. That's the most crucial. But the basis of how you're going to predict what will happen in the 2028 presidential election is the midterm election. So far from my analysis, the Duterte faction is emerging, thriving, and I think would be a very important contending power base, and as against to Marcos' side. On the other hand, another important upcoming political issue, or another destabilizing issue, politically speaking, in the Philippines is the impeachment, the upcoming impeachment trial of the vice president. But it's very complicated, Fernando, because supposedly June 3, I think, or June 2, I'm not mistaken, June 3, I think, supposed to be is the start of the pre-trial of the impeachment. So when it
Mhm.
comes to pre-trial, meaning, I mean, the prosecutors who are members of the House of Representatives would be in the Senate, who will be reading the what you call the charges against the vice president, Sara Duterte. But the Senate president, out of the blue, postponed it to June 11. And then they're saying that the formal trial will start on July 30, because that's the I think that would be the a new Congress will be instituted by that time. So it's the 20th Congress. Now we are in the 19th Congress. So in around
Mhm.
July 30, we will have a new Congress for both upper and lower house. So that's the schedule. But there are a lot of issues on the impeachment, because today I read that there's a resolution passed by one of the senators, Senator Bato. I'm trying to encourage the senators in the 19th Congress to do away with the impeachment trial. So meaning a resolution saying that let's stop this impeachment trial, let's vote and let's stop and let's get it done. No impeachment trial at all. So there's a resolution pending in the Senate. However, the
Hmm.
19th Congress will will be over. It will end by June 14. So by June 14, close already, and then you will have the 20th Congress coming in. So the
So this
resolution
could be
has to be,
over.
yeah, that's the
This
thing.
will
So
be
that's
over
also
by
the
the
thing.
14th.
So that's you now there
Maya,
is
Maya.
this, I think, in the Senate right now, that resolution is being circulated for signature, because if you get a majority, at least a majority would sign the resolution, it means no impeachment trial will happen. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be good for the vice president. However, the lower house, the members of the House of Representatives, they are complaining, saying that the Senate is delaying the impeachment trial. And so many are complaining against the Senate and against the Senate President Senator Escudero. Second is saying that it's a constitutional duty of the Senate to proceed with the impeachment trial because it's in the Constitution. And the third one
Mm-hmm.
is saying that the senators are afraid of Sara Duterte precisely because of the midterm election that happened. That you can see that the emergence of the the Duterte power base is made its presence
Better
felt in the
statement.
election. Yeah, and also it was a political statement in many ways. So there's a lot of lots of things going on at the moment, but there are only two questions actually that is very important when you talk about the impeachment. First, would the impeachment proceed, or we will not have an impeachment trial anymore because the resolution will be carried? So that's one thing. The other one is if the impeachment trial will proceed, would it be in the 20th Congress or in the 19th Congress? But I think from my perspective is in the 20th Congress, the new Congress. If it
The
proceeds,
composition of the 20th Congress, would
would
that
be
be
different
beneficial or would be adversarial to
to
the vice
Sara Duterte.
president?
I think it's
Mm-hmm.
like this. The 20th Congress would be favorable when you talk about numbers for the vice president. That's why many of those who filed the impeach or who signed the
Delay.
impeachment against Sara Duterte are complaining at the moment that it should have started maybe few months back,
ASAP.
or few weeks back, because it's supposed to be, according to them, a constitutional duty of the Senate. However, if this impeachment trial will happen in the 20th Congress, Sarah will have the numbers. So in terms of
Mm.
numbers, Sarah probably will potentially will survive the impeachment. So these are the things that's going on. However, if you look at the vice president, if you listen to her, she's okay. She even said, I want a bloodbath. I want the
What
impeachment
does she
trial
mean by that?
to
She wants to
proceed.
go to. She wants to proceed with the impeachment and
Yeah, she wants to
show
proceed with
them.
the impeachment trial because she wants to clarify certain issues. She wants to respond to the allegations, and maybe also she wants to clear her name, because
Mm.
I think her defense team is ready, and I think she has some kind of things in her hands that if
Ace.
that's even the thing that I'm thinking right now, to be frank with you. I think the vice president has a lot of things in her hands that if this will come out in public, I think the other side will be at the disadvantage. So that's why she said, like, I want a bloodbath. Let's proceed with the trial. I want to, explain myself
Bring it
based on,
on, basically.
yeah, something, and bring it on. I'm ready. I don't care what, because the attitude of the vice president is like this. I really don't care if I will be acquitted or I will be convicted. But if you
Mm.
want a trial, I'll give you a trial. I'm ready anytime. So that's now
Wow.
the politicians are very conflicted because they know that if Sara Duterte survives the impeachment trial and if she run for president in 2028, and she will go up to that position, politicians in my country, they rearrange their loyalty easily. Now, that's the test, because
Mm.
Sarah's attitude and character is is not a politician's character. She knows who are those people who put her where she is right now, pushed to the wall. And she knows who are, the friends who were with her during the time of difficulty. So that is the
Mm.
problem with these politicians, because the possibility of Sarah becoming president is so high. especially if she survives the impeachment trial. And even if we will have an impeachment trial, because we don't even know. As I've said, there
Mm.
is a resolution circulating in the Senate at the moment saying that let's not have this impeachment anymore. Let's do away with it. Forget about it. But there is a
So
crisis between the
many,
lower and the upper house of Congress. The lower house
there's
is
many,
getting
many
so
moving
angry.
parts.
Yeah, so many very crazy politics in my country at the moment.
But I love
Exactly for
talking to
someone
you
like
about
you, I
this.
think.
Well, our country is also a bit crazy like that. But again, that's probably for another video and for somebody to ask me questions about it.
I
Anna,
will reverse.
I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very tired. I know that you're very busy. So really, thank you very much for coming and joining me to discuss about this code of conduct, which I think it's going to be so consequential. It's going to be so beneficial for the region, and hopefully within a few months or years, we'll be able to have it on, and everything will be a lot easier around the South China Sea. So Anna, thank you so very much. I will
Thank
probably
you.
bother you some other time to talk about other issues. But for now,
Always
that's it.
welcome. Always a pleasure, Fernando. Thank you so much and have a good evening and hope to see
Thank
you
you,
soon.
Anna. You too. Bye bye.